Hi, this is Nick Weiss of Weiss Law. If you're watching this, first of all, I'm sorry. It means that you're struggling right now and your marriage might be in trouble. Or hopefully you're trying to get this information for someone else. What we can do, and what I can do with this little video, is try to describe some of the ways that you can equitably and fairly end a marriage. I want to start with the basic one, and the one that you're going to be most familiar with, and that's a divorce. First of all, what is a divorce? A divorce is a judicial decree that terminates a marriage. And that's it at its most simplistic. But marriage is complicated. There are a lot of interminglings of things, mostly property, which is what a lot of what divorce comes down to is the separation of assets that were created or generated or accrued during the marriage, as well as any debts that were created during the marriage, and then an equitable division of those assets and debts. That can include cars, that can include houses, that can include retirement accounts, that can include bank accounts, and coming to a full separation of those things. If there are children of the marriage, which is common, it also means determining whether there can be a equitable shared parenting plan, whether one parent needs to be a sole custodian or a sole parent, and also what, if any, is going to be child support, and the parenting plan between the parents as to the kids. Finally, one thing that can be done in a divorce is an allocation of spousal support. There's a very complicated factor test for determining whether there should be spousal support, how much should it be, how long should it be, but that's also an attribute of any kind of divorce, any kind of separation. There are two different types of divorce. There is the contested divorce, which is what most people are familiar with. If you have seen any kind of media, any kind of movies of divorce, you're familiar with lawyers like me yelling in courtrooms, people testifying, and a generally harrowing experience for everyone. That is the most expensive, the longest, the most challenging, and the most emotionally taxing of any ways to end a marriage. The second and the most common way is called an uncontested divorce. This happens one of two ways. Either someone files for a divorce and the other side doesn't respond. And so you write up an order for the court and they look at your docs and they determine whether that's going to be fair. And that's it. It is uncontested. The other side, the other party didn't show up. But the more common one is when you start with a contested divorce and you end up coming to an agreement, which is 99% of all divorces. Then we change that contested divorce to an uncontested divorce. And by mutual agreement, we enter into a divorce decree that terminates your marriage. There's an even easier option, and it's one that I try to push as often as we can whenever we get someone calling in, and that's called a dissolution. A dissolution is basically a divorce in reverse. Instead of fighting about everything and then coming to a resolution, we start with the resolution and just ask the court to enter it. That requires a lot of trust. It requires a lot of communication. It requires people usually to still like each other a little bit. We determine what our decree should look like. What should the asset division be? What should be the debt division? What should be our parenting plan between the kids? Whether there's spousal support, how much child support should there be? And we put it all in one document and we just send it into the court. And unless there's something horrific in that document, something so unfair that a court wouldn't dare to enforce it, that's going to be it. And if it sounds that simple, it's because it is. A lot of times people do this without attorneys whatsoever. It can be helpful when you're doing a dissolution to have an attorney for at least parts of it, particularly spousal support, child support, or division of any kind of retirement assets. But it's pretty easy and it's a lot cheaper and it's a lot less taxing on everyone. Um, Finally, there is an option to separate without terminating the marriage at all. This is called a legal separation. Sometimes when people say they're separated, that means they're just living separate and apart. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about an actual legal separation. And in process, it can be identical to a contested divorce, uncontested divorce, or dissolution. You are doing all of the same things. You are litigating all of the same things, determining what the divisions of assets are, debts, allocating income and expenses, determining shared parenting, determining the parenting plan between the kids, all of the same stuff, but you're still legally married, right? There can be reasons why you would want to do this. Maybe you think in the future we could reconcile, right? Maybe you want to stay on each other's health insurance, and so we need to keep that legal marriage going. Maybe you want to continue to be able to inherit from one another, and so we want to stay legally married. Maybe, and this happens occasionally, you have a religious reason for not wanting to actually go through a divorce, and then a legal separation can affect all of the same things that you would need to do in a divorce without actually legally being divorced. That's a legal separation. That's a less common uh, thing that we deal with here in the firm, but it's something that can be used under certain special circumstances. So that's basically it. The ways that you can terminate. We've got the hardest, contested divorce, then a little bit easier, uncontested divorce, then very easy on easy mode, dissolution. And finally, if you don't really want to terminate the marriage, but you can't actually stay together, we have your legal separation. This is at bare bones. I hope this has been helpful. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to our office.